Hey guys, what's up? Gray here, and welcome back to another MonoGame video where I'll be showing you the main game state of the game we've been creating for the past few months, and all that's left is the high score state. Once that is done, it should all be working perfectly. So first, we'll want to start by importing some libraries. We can do that here. I'm just going to paste mine in. You can use the same ones I'm using. If you want to copy them from the actual file, you can find them on my GitHub. I will post that in the description down below. To start off the game states file, I want to load in some fonts so that we can display the high score. So once we're in this is everything we'll want to load once we hit the single player button. This is the main game. So everything we want to load in, let's do a private sprite font. Call this font. We'll also have a private score manager. And that'll manage the score of the player. This will be a private list next, so let's do a private list. Private list sprite, and we'll call this sprites. And then we'll do a timer so that we can have stuff spawn over time if we want, like little boost pads or something. So we'll do a private float timer. And then we'll obviously want some textures, so we'll do private texture 2D, and we'll call this a power up texture, because this is for the boost pads that give you score as well. We're also going to want a public static int screen width, and public static int screen height. So both of these will want to initialize to something. I'd recommend doing 1920 by 1080, but if you have a smaller monitor, you might want to do 1280 by 720. It's all up to you. Next off, we'll have a public static random. We'll just call this random. Probably lowercase. And then we'll do a private texture 2D for the background. There we go. Private. And that's all for our variables. Next, we'll want our constructor. So here we'll say public game state, game1 game, comma content manager, content. Perfect. And after this, we'll want to do :base game content, brackets. Put that down there, and we'll get to the error in a second. So let's finish this off. Inside here, we want to initialize random. So say random equals new random. Random's lowercase. Something I've already totally forgotten, like I did last episode, we're going to want to inherit state. That is the whole point we're doing this. We're inheriting state so that we can tune into everything else. And now this is going to force us to have a post update, update, load, and draw method, which is exactly what we want. So until we have those, it'll give us an error. So let's just continue on. We will do the load content next. So public override, and we'll say it returns void and load content is its name. So I hit tab there, and it already did throw new not implemented exception. If you listened in the last episode, this is just what the computer throws at you since you didn't write this actually. I mean, technically I guess we did, but took credit, whatever. Alright, here in load content, we're going to say var car texture is equal to content.load texture 2D. This is all the same stuff. We'll just say car underscore right is the file. Next off, we will have power up texture is equal to content dot load texture 2D. Alright, and then in here we'll say it's called power up. Next up, we'll have score manager is equal to score manager dot load. Next we have sprites equals new list. And in here we will say sprite. And then we're going to have some brackets. And here's where we do our car. So I'm going to paste that in. Alright, there's our car texture. So it's a weird syntax there, but if you just get it from the file, then it will work perfect. We don't want to forget about the background, so let's copy this and put that there. Equals content.load texture 2D. And this one will be called background. Track 1. Perfect. Get rid of that. Next, we'll initialize the font. So we'll say font equals content.load sprite font. And we'll call this one font. This is a public class game state. Alright, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is the update method. So public override void update. And we'll pass in everything there. Here inside of the update method is where most of our new stuff is going to be happening. So I'll say if keyboard.getState, and that's a method, is key down. We'll say keys.escape. We'll say the game dot change state, capital. We'll say new menu state and game and content. Perfect. Oh, fix my spelling. And then we'll say for each var sprite in sprites, sprite dot update, we'll pass in game time and sprites, which is lowercase. Game time, lowercase. Next, for the timer, we can say timer plus equals float. Cast that right there to game time dot elapsed game time dot total seconds. There we go. And we can say for each, this is the spawn stuff, like little power-ups, var sprite in sprites dot to array. Method. We'll say sprite dot update game time and sprites. Perfect. And then we'll do post update, and we'll also make a spawn power up method. So now that we have those, we can actually do the spawn power up. Let's do a private void spawn power up. If the timer is greater than 1, we will say timer is equal to 0, var x position equals random dot next, say 0 screen width minus power up texture dot width and semicolon, and then we'll say var y position equal to random dot next say 0 the screen height minus power up texture dot height. After we say that, we can say sprites dot add new sprite, and we'll call this power up texture. Open position equals new vector 2, and we'll say x position and y position. Do a comma, and then we're gonna have a bit of weird stuff down here. I think we do that. Yeah. But then we need another. Perfect. Alright. So now that we have that, we can do the post update. So say public override void post update. Well, I made the spawn power up in the update method. My bad. Don't want to do that, and you don't want to make the post update there either. Alright. Here in post update, we're going to say var collidable sprites, and we'll say equals sprites dot where c is greater than or equal to c is I collidable, and then semicolon. Perfect. Then we'll say for each var sprite a in collidable sprites and then we'll say for each, do a nested loop, var sprite b in collidable sprites. We want to make sure we don't do anything if they're the same sprite. So don't do anything if they are the same sprite, which we'll do if sprite A is equal to sprite B, then continue. If it's not sprite A collidable collision area dot intersects, we'll say sprite B dot collision area. This is just saying if it, sprite A and sprite B. It's saying if sprite A collision area, sprite B, continue, and if sprite A dot intersects sprite B, I collidable sprite A dot on collide with sprite B. There we go, perfect. We have done the collision for the little things that spawn, the little boost pads. So now that we've done that, we can move on. One more thing we'll do here is for int I equals 0. I is less than sprites dot count I plus plus. If sprites indexed at I is removed, sprites dot remove at I, and then I minus minus. So basically, if you pick it up, it'll remove it. So we're done with that now. The last bit is the draw method. So we'll say public override void draw. It'll implement it all for us. We can delete this. And the first thing we'll want to say is sprite batch dot begin. Right after that, we can say sprite batch dot end. Everything we do is going to be right in between this. Alright, first off, we'll want to draw the game background texture, so I'm going to do sprite batch dot draw the game background texture. So let's get that from up here. We have a decent amount of errors, but we'll come back to them. We have errors everywhere, but that's not an issue. So game background texture, and then we'll say comma new vector2, and we'll place it somewhere. We'll just say 0, 0, so it starts at the top. And then we'll have the color be white. White. There we go. Alright, and then next we want to do for each var sprites in, or sprite in sprites, sprite dot draw sprite batch. There we go. Semicolon there. Oh yeah, it's a method, so fix that. We'll want to use a nice command here. It's called sprite batch dot draw string. And with this, we'll want to call in the font and do comma, and we can say like player, and then do player dot score dot player name, a new vector2 x and 10f, and then we'll do comma color dot white. Perfect. So let's make some variables. We'll have a float x equals 10f, var font y equals 10, var I equals 0. Alright, something I want to do is add a list of players. So that right under the list of sprites. So we'll do private list players. We'll just call it player and call it players. Something I want to add to the post update. We will say if all the players are dead, we save the scores and return to the high score state. So if players dot all c is greater than or equal to c dot is dead, and we'll say for each var player in players score manager dot add score manager. Oh, player dot score. Player dot score. And we'll say score manager dot save score manager, and game dot change state. New high score state game content. There we go, and this is something that can help change the state if everyone is dead. You gotta add is dead to the players as well as score. Because I think score has its own thing. It's player. It's getting the player. Yeah, high score state hasn't even been created yet. So this will definitely not work. We can fix some errors. Alright, there are a few errors, but I will get to fixing them, and soon it'll be working code. In the next episode, I'll show you how to do high scores, and everything will be finished. So I hope you all found this useful. If you did enjoy, please drop a like. But thank you all for watching, and have a nice day.